Alan Ng, just want to thank you. You're doing incredible work with the D Files. Part 3, entitled, little subtitle here, Killer of Dreams is here. I have read the article. Um, Unfortunately, because sources are anonymous, specifics about certain stories have been left out, but it paints a picture of a toxic work environment that is so disheartening. I don't know how anyone would even want to go into animation after what I've read. So tell us, or at least tell us a little bit of like what, you know, before, and we'll put a link in the description to the story itself. But Alan, what can you tell us and give us sort of a brief synopsis of the story itself?
Yeah. So we start off where we last left, where the women in animation, they were helping to actively recruit women to work on Ryan the Last Dragon. In fact, they're actively doing that throughout the entire industry with every studio. They're going for if you go to their website, their goal is 50-50 equity, and that is certainly what they try to do. And you do it in one of two ways. You recruit as many women as you can who have some kind of modicum of talent, and then you force out the men who are currently there. And we kind of look at both of those things. In terms of where Disney got their talent, I referenced this in part 2, but there was a female filmmaker panel about Ryan the Last Dragon. Fawn Vera Senthorn, who is the director of Wish, co-director of Wish. She was the head of story at this time, and she was helping to recruit. And she makes an interesting statement, which basically says, I'm finding it here. I do have a link to the video in there. But yeah, why is my quote gone? All right. Basically, she says that they went to social media to recruit artists, female artists, and we found out, thanks to my sources, exactly where that was, and that was off Tumblr. They went to Tumblr and Reddit, and they basically, what they did was they just looked there, saw people with a modicum of talent, and said, "Hey, do you want to work for Disney?" And that's exactly what happened. And let's see, and I kind of go through what people thought of the Tumblr talent. The quality just wasn't there. People who are on Tumblr, they were artists who basically copied other artists, and which is fine if you can copy your favorite artist very well. If I could copy John Byrne, I would be very happy with that. It just shows you have kind of a minimal level of talent. But then when you're thrust into a professional situation and you have to actually animate a cartoon, it's very different, and your talents are just not there. The other thing is you're in a social media community. You're in a Tumblr community, and what happens there is you post your artwork, and everyone compliments you and affirms you. And then if you have any constructive criticism, that's often met with one, taking it incredibly personally, and B, becoming this war of this battle of, why would you're just jealous of me? Why would you say things like that? And so Tumblr is not art school. You're not going to get honest, constructive criticism. You're just going to be uplifted. And if anyone gives you criticism, you're just going to smash them down as best you can. And the other thing is, the Tumblr becomes this kind of incel community where they talk where the members talk amongst each other and talk about things they wish was happening in the world. Like why does there always have to be a villain in a Disney movie? And they'll just kind of go off on these rabbit trails. So, why does the princess always need a man? And this is, what's happening here is Tumblr is not creating artists. They're creating activists. They're creating influencers. And Disney, I think, was very intentional in that they wanted influencers. They wanted to hire influencers first over artists. They basically said, "Hey, your work is passable, but we need your social media influence." And so I think they underestimated their artistic talent and overestimated their ability to bring in an audience, and that's kind of where what happened there.
Well,
And oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I just have a follow-up question, but
No, go ahead. Yeah.
no, okay. So having read through the story, and the story just hit probably, I don't know, less than an hour ago ish. This quote, the goal was to clear out as many old white guys as possible at Disney Animation. They brought in these, and this is the thing that blows my mind about this story.
Mhm.
They brought in artists from Tumblr, and their reasoning behind it was where Tumblr is where you can show off portfolios, right? So
Right.
you see these new up and coming artists
That's the
that
good
don't
thing
have,
about Tumblr.
they're
That's the
not
good thing about Tumblr.
okay, good thing, whatever. Tumblr's also a cesspool of hatred and awful, awful stuff. I know this because I did a panel at WonderCon in 2015 that became the subject of some piling on attack that got my panel destroyed. And it was all it was a community from Tumblr, from this fanfic group that just piled on. It's like a friend of mine who's a teacher. She said that young girls, when they're in junior high, are the most evil form of human because of the cattiness. So
Yeah.
just saying, and the bullying is different. With men and women bully differently, right? When boys bully amongst each other, a lot of it is physical prowess, and then there's some sort of respect that you see. A lot of times this happens. I remember when I was in school, you get in like a physical fight with another kid, suddenly you're friends with that person. And I think that young women they just act differently. They're very different in their kind of bullying.
Mhm.
But I'll just say, coming from that community, this all totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was, that statement, the goal was to clear out as many old white guys as possible at Disney Animation. It became so toxic for some of the people working at Disney Animation that people were also to the point where men were afraid to talk to women for things to get misinterpreted. Like,
Yeah.
I can see that the toxic work environment that was created by bringing in only a certain type of person is what led to a movie like Wish. And now, post Wish, I believe that the Burbank studio is being punished, which is why Moana 2 is being made in Canada. Not that like Canada is any sort of, non-woke paradise. I'm just saying that like it's just gotten so toxic.
I mean, that's certainly the impression we get, is that look, Strange. I'll say this: Strange World, I believe, was the last movie to have any legitimate veteran talent on it, because when Wish came about, you could tell that everything that Disney had brought to the game of animation, concerning he was the first, was completely gone. And it seems like that the tactic of removing as many white guys as possible, old white guys as possible, worked. They're no longer at Disney. And Wish is the example of that. In fact, that's part 4 of the D files here, where we go into Wish. Look, one part where I talk about what was the impression of this Tumblr talent from the veterans, and they basically said their artwork was okay. But it was clear that their inspirations did not come from Disney, but it came from what was popular amongst the millennials and Gen Z at the time, and that was anime. Their whole style was built on anime, the anime they had watched, and that when the veterans asked them about Snow White, Lady and the Tramp, 101 Dalmatians, so on, just met with blank stares. No one knew the legacy of Walt Disney, which you would assume anyone who worked at Walt Disney prior to all this, they knew the legacy of Walt Disney front and back. And they hired people who didn't know anything about Walt Disney at that point.
Well, I mean, look at you. To be clear, you wrote this subhead to your story. Bye bye, old white guy. I thought that was very clever, Alan.
Yes,
I gotta give you credit.
I thought of that this morning.
No, I like the additional subheads to put things into context, but it really became a certain type of person would be hired that led to a toxic work environment, and that's what the story lays out. What's unfortunate, where did you source these images?
Oh, that Co-pilot.
Co-pilot. Okay, there you go. These new hires were recruited as activists and trained to be bullies. This thing, especially the WIA, Women in Animation,
Mhm.
it's like their
I
whole
could do a
agenda.
whole article on women in animation, by the way. I've
Right.
held back on that.
Well, you've mentioned it at least in the last 2 editions of
Yeah,
this.
it's the organization is much more sinister, and I'm kind of working through because women in animation, they have literally taken over animation. The leaders of women in animation are the leaders of Disney, are the leaders of let's see, of Nickelodeon, of I think Paramount. They are, the head of the women in animation is the head of Skybound Television. Yeah, and also a prominent member is the leader of the Animators Guild. So they have their hands in everything.
Well, I'll just say this, having read the story, and again, we'll put a link in the description so you can go through it. And this is just part 3. There's a lot more to come as this gets exposed. You're trying to break this down.
Mhm.
It really was these activists being brought in, and what I think we're going to do before the end of this series is track look at the box office for pre all the activism,
Mhm.
because this is partially a piece to show the decline. So show what
Yeah.
it was
Yeah,
before.
we start with Coco. We start with Coco, and then we move our way down.
Well, but here's the deal. It's like, this is the thing. It's not like diversity came in and things declined. That's actually not the case. There were so many diverse types of projects as defined. This is the thing that bugs me about a lot of these young activists, is they think that they're the first to actually do something when so much of that stuff was done previously. It's just that even those projects are being poo-pooed. Well, it's not the right kind of diversity. Even a
Right.
film like I was talking to, or I saw Dr. Gonzo, who's a very big supporter of the channel, talking about how he found a way to watch Song of the South, and he just brought back all these memories, how much he loved that movie. That's
Mhm.
been completely buried, completely
Yeah.
buried.
Well,
And
I would submit that Wish is the ultimate, is the perfect diverse movie.
yes,
And
yes. When you look at like there's like a bunch of stills of like all the main characters, and it's like you literally could just title it Diversity the movie.
yeah,
But what I'm saying is, look at the movie Coco, right? Like,
yeah.
I love that film. I love that film. And so and you even pointed out, I saw a tweet from you. It was so good. Chef's kiss. Follow my pal Al on X or Twitter, whatever. You did a thing of like, yeah, and you showed a montage of Disney princesses that were diverse from years ago, like going
Mhm.
way back, like acting like that's something new, but it's like you're doing it wrong. God, I so annoyed by that.
Well, it wasn't done right. I
Yeah, it
mean,
wasn't done right.
yeah. I mean, they still complain about, there was a whole seminar on the problem of Princess and the Frog and Soul, that they weren't black throughout the whole film, and therefore it was racist.
Well, you know what's going to be a term you're not going to be able to use? Blacklist. The
Yeah.
blacklist will be racist.
Oh yeah. Believe me, that's been pointed out to me, and I kept it in because it's appropriate.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. So we find that so this is what the big reveal of this story is, not just the activism where Disney was recruiting, but the fact that there exists a blacklist in the industry of animators who can no longer work because of their attitudes or whatnot. And it's basically, again, another woke policing of art. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit,
yeah,
Alan.
I mean, that's exactly what's going on here. I we bring up the case of Chris Savino. That's not the story that we present there, but there was basically during the Me Too movement, Chris Savino, who was the showrunner of the Proud Family, he got caught up in the Me Too hype, and they were gunning for him. So much so that Samantha Bee did an entire episode on him.
Oh my God.
And so, but I'm not gonna litigate whether he was innocent or guilty, or question the testimony. But what came about was that as a result of uh, of Chris's suspension from Nickelodeon, the Animation Guild held a mock trial and declared him guilty without him being able to confront his accusers. And they basically then sent a letter to every animation house and every agent saying to not work with this man for 5 years. Of course, after 5 years, he got a job, right? No, he didn't. And what we found out, that there is an actual blacklist, animation blacklist out there, that no one can admit to because it's illegal. And B, there are repercussions if you start leaking this stuff out, which is
we're gonna get the blacklist. Someone out there, get us this blacklist of animators.
Yeah,
but because can I tell you why? My selfish reason. I have an animated project that I'm working on. I actually have 2. I've been trying to get this made for years, and maybe we'll just make it with only animators that are blacklisted.
Yeah.
What if I only hire certain types of people? Well, the type of people I tend to work with are people that can just, have a good attitude, and we like to joke around and whatever. Like,
but do you understand, if you did that, your project would not be union approved?
I don't care. I'm gonna make an indie animated project, and I've been working on this for a while, and I'm very excited. Along with I got a bunch of stuff coming up. We'll talk about that another time.
Yeah.
But so
I'll just say the last part of this article is just basically the state of animation in Hollywood, and not just Disney, but everywhere. And it is bleak. It's not good. And I think people, I certainly feel like that it's about to implode because there's a system in place right now that we're showing here that is toxic. That even if you were an animator, you wouldn't want to be amongst animators. And B, I think studios are getting fed up with it, and I think that's exactly why Moana 2 moved to Canada. Well, and as many people have been pointing out, every studio is moving their animation house out of the country because they don't want to deal with the crap that's going on here in the States. And it's sad because Walt Disney Animation was the last bastion of American animation, and now it's going away. It's moving to Canada,
and I just think that's a result of this industry. Them hiring a certain type of person, and that sort of attitude just permeating. I want to address this last part in the piece here. Someone added, if you work in the industry and have a story to tell or something to add and would like to share your story, the word story in one sentence used twice. I don't like that. Should probably rewrite that. On or off the record, contact us. And in the next D Files, you're going to show the current state of the animation industry, specifically at Disney, and how the art form of animation is dead and there are no jobs for you here. And then look, someone added a link, and check out the previous article.
I know who did that.
That's me being an editor and doing. You gotta know how to push it.
No, I spent 3 hours on this morning.
But you gotta add those things so people can get context. This
is you got to it before.
All right, fine. You know what?
But
giving you a little.
But this is the saddest thing that I titled this "Killer of Dreams." I mean, Disney was the dream. There was a time where I was, in my room with my art pad, just trying to learn to draw, and I would have loved to work for Disney. There are a lot of people, a lot of kids out there who watch animation and want to be an animator. Spoke to someone whose daughter is looking into animation and stepping back and saying, I don't know that there's going to be an industry for your daughter to be in. That's
what we keep hearing is this industry may not exist. AI and sourcing things out of America is going to kill the American animation industry. That's what's happening. That is the thing that's even more concerned. Forget Disney. I think Disney is lost. Yeah. I am of the opinion that Disney as a company is lost. They're not going to make any changes. The DEI, now they've added an A. You like to always add letters.
Yeah.
DEIA.
I'm surprised they can go with the Jedi thing, but
the Jedi thing. It's lost. It's lost. This is an industry that has self-immolated. that has chosen through hubris and narcissism and self-centeredness to just destroy itself. This is where we are. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad. I mean, look, the upside is the tools of animation are there off the shelf. You can buy it off the shelf. And if you want to be an animator, I would say this, start animating. You grab this software, learn it, study it, start telling stories. And the second thing is find someone who will mentor you, someone who will give you honest criticism and spur you to be better. And then third, get your 10,000 hours in.
yeah.
And I have to believe, like with the rest of Hollywood, the indie movement is what's going to propel animation forward, not the big studios.
It's possible. It's possible that I think that there could be an indie animated movement. Some low budget indie feature,
Yeah,
is in the cards. Final thoughts, Alan, before we go to comments.
yeah. I will tell you, when you read this and you read the stories, I will guarantee you it's worse. You and I talked about how, you get more specific, and I'm like, no one will go on the record with anything. The stories I have are horrible. The situation in the Disney animation studios itself is awful. And I can't get anyone to go on the record. I know what's happening there. But we go into the whole what is it, the interactions between the veterans and the new recruits. It is a battle between these two. Even offering to help and mentor someone, no, they don't want anything to do with the old white guys. And that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what the climate is like in there.
It's just wouldn't you want to take the knowledge of someone who's been a veteran in the industry more than, several decades, I'm going to just throw out. Wouldn't you want that as a competitive advantage in your work, to be mentored by someone at that skill level? But there's a weird, it's very childish. I find it. It's really,
I'll tell you what I found out is that these animators, these new recruit animators, they don't want to animate. They don't care about art. They want to get into story. They want to take over the story.
The other thing is that you mentioned in the article is they want to get hired into supervisory roles.
Yeah.
So they want those, like, they want to be like, executives or managers and the gatekeepers, which tells me that they're more concerned about power than art.
Yeah.
And whatever you think about Walt Disney, that guy really, really, he created an industry and a brand. That's why, at least for now, they still call it the Walt Disney Company. How soon until the Walt Disney Company disavows the creator and it's just the WD?
Yeah.
How long until we get to the WD? Any guess, Alan?
Oh, it's going to happen soon. Yeah. It's okay. So there's two more parts. We're going to look at animation and Wish in the next part. The part 5 is going to be titled "Fuck Disney," which was quoted by a high-level executive when asked, when basically given the question, back in the day, Walt would have done this, and the response from that executive was "Fuck Disney."
Well, look, we know there are going to be several more parts of the D-Files coming, so we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Let's
go to some ancillary stuff. The stuff we're getting about the theme parks is incredible. The D-Files specifically focuses on animation, but there's a lot more to say about this cancer that is running through the entire Walt Disney Company.
That I think is a separate story outside of the D-Files. I think
that's why there'll probably be sub stories. Like I could do an entire thing on women in animation, but it wouldn't be Disney specific.
Well, let's do it.
Yeah.